Chapter 1. The Numbness. The monitors. They were screaming. A high, thin beep 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 that cut right through the chaos of the trauma bay. Dr. Evelyn Reed didn't flinch. She just pressed the cold paddles against the man's chest. Charging to 200. Clear. Her voice was flat. Calm. The voice she used when the world was ending for everyone else. The man's body jumped on the gurney. Nothing. Again. 300. Clear. Thump. The intern beside her, a kid named Ben, was shaking. Sweat dripped from his nose. Dr. Reed, his pressure is gone. I can see that, doctor. Evelyn moved. She was not a person. She was a machine. She was precise. She was empty. Scalpel. Now. She worked. She cut, she clamped, she stitched. She moved with a speed that was almost unnatural. Her hands never trembled. Her heart never raced. This was control. This was the only place she felt. Well, she didn't feel, but it was the only place that made sense. An hour later, the man was stable. The screaming monitors had settled into a steady, rhythmic beep, beep, beep. Ben wiped his face. I thought we lost him. How did you? Evelyn was already stripping her bloody gloves. He was bleeding out. I stopped the bleeding. Next patient. She walked away, leaving him standing there. In the locker room, the smell of antiseptic and copper, the smell of death, clung to her. She scrubbed her hands raw. Red. Her shift was over. Today was her birthday. Her 35th. She felt nothing. Just tired. A deep, bone-weary exhaustion that had nothing to do with the double shift. Because of this, she had planned her escape. A small, remote cabin. Deep in the Silverbane woods. No service. No people. No anything. She opened her locker. A single envelope sat on top of her bag. It was wrong. The envelope was thick. Heavy. Like parchment. Her name, Evelyn, was written on the front in sharp, black ink. No stamp. No return address. Who? She slid her finger under the flap. The paper was cold. It felt strange. Almost damp. Inside, there was a single card. It wasn't a birthday card. Just one sentence, written in that same, angry black ink. The moon calls for its daughter. Stop running. Evelyn stared at it. A chill, a real one, skated down her spine. It wasn't a hospital chill. This was different. This felt like static electricity. A prank. It had to be. One of the nurses. They thought she was cold. A work robot. This was their idea of a joke. Wasn't it? She remembered, for just a second, her last boyfriend. 6 years ago. Mark. He'd tried so hard to, what did he call it? Crack her shell. He'd left. They all left. He said she was impossible to know. That she was made of stone. He wasn't wrong. She liked the stone. The stone didn't bleed. The stone didn't break. Stone didn't get left. She crumpled the strange, heavy card in her fist. The edges felt sharp. Too sharp. Stop running. I'm not running, she whispered to the empty, tiled room. I'm just tired. She shoved the wadded-up card into her bag, zipped it shut, and grabbed her coat. The promise of the cabin, of absolute, blessed silence, was the only thing pulling her forward. She just needed to get away from the noise, away from the blood, and away from the sudden, stupid feeling that someone, or something, was watching her. Chapter 2. The Itch. Her apartment was gray. The walls were gray. The sofa was gray. The sheets on her perfectly made bed were a different gray. It was a fortress of nothing. A place where emotions came to die. Following that brutal shift, the silence here felt good. Normal. She packed. 1 small suitcase. Thermal socks. 3 sweaters. A heavy-duty parka. And 2 books she would probably not read. She zipped the bag. Done. And then, it happened. A feeling. It started in her hands. An itch. No, not an itch. A vibration. A low, humming thrum, like she was holding a live wire. She dropped the suitcase. Evelyn rubbed her palms together. Hard. The thrum didn't stop. It spread. Up her arms. Into her shoulders. A restless, coiling energy under her skin. What is this? She never got sick. She didn't get sick. Maybe it was stress. The double shift. The letter. She walked to the kitchen, her movements stiff. She poured a glass of water, her hand shaking. Stop it. She hated shaking. Shaking was my weakness. Shaking was a loss of. The thrum pulsed. Harder. It was joined by a sudden heat. A flash, quick and sharp, that started in her chest and exploded outward. She gasped and dropped the glass. It shattered on the gray tile. Water and glass, everywhere. Evelyn stared at the mess. She should be annoyed. She should be grabbing the dustpan. But she couldn't move. Because all she could feel was the heat. It wasn't like a fever. A fever was damp. Weak. This was dry. It was clean. It felt powerful. She backed away from the broken glass. Her heart, it was pounding. Not from fear. It was pounding. A heavy thud-thud-thud, like a war drum. This is ridiculous, she said out loud. Her voice sounded strange. Thin. The cabin. She needed the cabin. She needed this trip because it was the only thing keeping her sane. She had booked it 3 months ago because she knew this birthday would be hard. 35. The age of her mother. She cut that thought off. No. She grabbed her keys. The metal felt warm. Or maybe her hand was hot. She looked out the window. The city was loud, dirty, bright. But the moon, it was almost full. It hung over the skyline, huge and white and perfect. It looked hungry. She felt a sudden, sharp pang in her chest. Not pain. Longing. A desperate, aching pull toward, what? The moon? You're having a breakdown, Evie, she muttered. She grabbed her bag. She didn't clean up the glass. She never left a mess. But the thrum, the itch, the heat, it was pushing her. Hurry. 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 She ran from her sterile, gray apartment, her blood feeling like hot, simmering static. She was running to the silence. She didn't realize she was running right toward the thing that was calling her. Chapter 3. The Falling Place. The drive was a blur. The city lights vanished. The highway faded. The roads became narrow, winding, dark. As she climbed higher, the air grew thinner. The snow started. First, just flurries. Soft. Pretty. Then, it was a wall. A blinding, furious white. Her little car, her safe, gray, practical car, skidded on the ice. Evelyn gripped the wheel. Her knuckles were white. But the heat, the thrum, it was singing now. The cold didn't touch her. She had the heat cranked, but she was sweating. The wind, it didn't just blow. It howled. It sounded alive. It sounded angry. She finally saw the sign. Silverbane Retreat, Cabin 12. It was barely a path. Just 2 ruts in the deep, deep snow. This is it. This is silence. The cabin was tiny. Dark. Almost buried. She parked. Killed the engine. The silence that crashed down was total. No, not total. She could hear the wind in the pines. She could hear the crunch of her own feet in the snow. She could hear her heartbeat, thudding, thudding. She walked to the door. The brass doorknob was covered in frost. A thick, icy shell. Evelyn reached for it. And hissed. A small sizzle of steam, of smoke, rose from her glove when she touched the metal. The ice melted. She stared at her hand. At the steam. What? The static electricity, she thought. The drive. The cold. It's just static. It was a lie. It felt like a lie. She pushed the door open. Inside, it was freezing. Colder than outside. The air was dead. Still. She fumbled for a light switch. Found one. A single, bare bulb flickered overhead. It cast shadows. Long, deep shadows in the corners of the one-room cabin. There was a fireplace. Damp logs piled beside it. Useless. She dropped her bag. The thrum, the heat, it wasn't pushing her anymore. It was exploding. It felt like fire, injected straight into her veins. The itch wasn't an itch, it was a clawing. Something under her skin, clawing to get out. She gasped, stumbling back. The light bulb flickered, buzzed, and went out. Pitch black. But, no. Her vision, it was changing. The darkness. It wasn't dark. It was gray. She could see the outline of the chair, the dust on the floor, and the shadows. Oh God. The shadows in the corners, they were moving, twisting, coiling, like smoke. This isn't real. This is hypoxia. The altitude. Then, she smelled it. Her senses exploded. She could smell everything. The damp, rotting wood of the floor. The mouse, nesting in the wall. The sharp, clean scent of pine. And something else. Something outside. A smell that was hot. And musky. And animals. The smell of wet fur. A predator. A big one. The heat roared. The power surged. It wasn't her power. It was something else. Something ancient. She tried to scream. But the sound that ripped from her throat, it wasn't a scream. It was a snarl. Her knees buckled. Her control, her life, shattered. The last thing she saw before the darkness swallowed her was the crumpled, heavy letter, which had fallen from her pocket. On the dark floor, the ink, it seemed to glow. The moon calls for its daughter. Evelyn collapsed, just as the first, slow, heavy. The crunch of a massive paw broke the silence of the snow outside her door. Chapter 4. The Storm Inside. Pain. It wasn't a clean, sharp pain like a needle or a broken bone. This was heartbreaking. It felt like her entire body was ripping itself apart from the inside, like something wanted to crawl out of her skin. Her bones were grinding. She could hear it, a wet, popping sound inside her own ears. A scream was stuck in her throat, choked by a sudden, brutal agony. The thrum, the itch, it wasn't her anymore. It was a separate, living thing. A wild, furious energy that was remaking her. Get out. Get out. She was on the floor of the cabin, the rough, dirty wood biting into her cheek. But she wasn't cold. She was burning. Her skin felt like it was sizzling, melting away. And the smell. The smell from outside. The musky, hot scent of pine and animals. It wasn't outside anymore. It was here. Crack. The cabin door didn't just open. It exploded. Wood and ice shattered inward, a spray of shrapnel that cut through the tiny, dark room. A hurricane of snow and fury blasted inside, swallowing the last of her weak-willed shadows. Evelyn cried out, but the sound was thin, a kitten's mew in a thunderstorm. A shape filled the broken doorway. It wasn't a man. It couldn't be. It was too big. A mountain of shadow and rage that had to duck to get inside the frame. He moved. It wasn't a walk. It was a prowl, a fluid, deadly grace. 2 steps, and the massive, dark form was looming over her. Evelyn was paralyzed, pinned to the floor by her own body's betrayal. She could only stare up. Eyes. They weren't human. They were gold. Liquid, molten gold. They burned in the darkness, pupils slit like a cat's, or a wolf's. He froze. He just stopped, dead still, looming over her broken body. He breathed. A long, deep, shuddering inhale that wasn't human. The sound vibrated in her chest, a low rumble that was half snarl, half sob. The giant man, the monster, recoiled as if she had struck him. No! His voice. It wasn't a voice. It was the sound of rocks grinding together, deep under the earth. It cannot be. He looked up at the ceiling, his face twisted in a mask of pure agony. And fury. Reed. He spat the name like it was poison, a curse that filled the tiny cabin. His daughter. Hate. She felt it. It rolled off him in waves, a cold so deep it smothered the fire in her veins. He hated her. He wanted her dead. Why? What had she done? He looked back down at her. His face, it was a war. The deep, burning hatred was fighting something else. Something just as powerful. Something agonized. Mine. The word was ripped from his throat. It wasn't a claim. It was a condemnation. A curse he was forced to speak. He hated the word. He hated her. Evelyn screamed. The pain peaked. It shattered her. Her back arched off the floor. Her bones snapped. Her vision flashed, red, gold. Then, blackness. The very last thing she felt, the last sensation before the void swallowed her whole, was gentleness. Huge, hot, calloused hands. Lifting her, as if she were made of glass. Chapter 5. The Beast's Bed. Warm. That was the first thought. Why am I warm? The freezing cabin was gone. The tearing, shredding pain had vanished. In its place was a deep, dull ache, a soreness that settled into every muscle, as if she'd run 1,000 miles. But she was so warm. She was wrapped in fur. Thick, heavy, and impossibly soft. And it was hot. The scent. Oh, the scent. It was everywhere. It was the smell from the cabin, pine, musk, fire. But the rage was gone from it. Now it just smelled like safety. Evelyn's eyelids fluttered. They felt heavy. She opened her eyes. Where am I? This was not the cabin. This room was vast. The walls were rough, ancient stone, climbing up into shadows she couldn't pierce. A fireplace big enough to stand in, roared with a column of fire, throwing dancing orange light across the room. She was in a bed. A bed so massive it felt like an island. The furs were piled high, swallowing her. A soft sound, a sigh, made her freeze. She was not alone. Slowly, her heart thudding a heavy, slow beat, Evelyn turned her head. He was there. In a chair that looked more like a throne, carved from dark, heavy wood. He sat by the fire, watching her. It was him. The monster from the woods. The man. He was terrifying. And he was beautiful. His black hair was wild, falling to shoulders so broad they seemed to fill the chair. He wore no shirt. His chest, his arms, they were a roadmap of scars. White, angry lines. Deep, ancient claw marks. He didn't move. He just watched. And his eyes, gold. Liquid gold, burning with the firelight. They saw everything. They looked into her. The air in the room was thick. It crackled with a strange, silent energy, like the air before a lightning strike. Her body, it hummed. The thrum, the heat, it was still there, buzzing quietly under her skin. But it wasn't fighting her anymore. It was content. It liked this place. It liked him. You are awake. His voice. It vibrated inside her chest, a low rumble that shook her. Where? Her throat was raw, scraped. Where am I? My fortress. He stood up. Oh, God. He unfolded. Up and up. He towered over the furniture, a giant of a man who blocked the firelight, casting her in his shadow. You took me, she whispered. You were dying. He stepped closer. His feet were bare on the stone floor, making no sound. Your human shell, it broke. The change started. Change? What? What change? I don't understand. He was so close now. He stopped at the edge of the massive bed. He smelled clean, like the wind and pine and power. He reached out. His hand was huge, calloused, but it moved slowly. His fingers, so warm, brushed her cheek. Flash, darkness, fire, screaming. A forest, burning. A man on the ground, dying in the snow, and he had golden eyes. A woman, standing over him, laughing. Evelyn gasped, flinching away from his touch so hard she hit the pillows. No! Cale snatched his hand back as if she had burned him. His face hardened. The gentleness, it was gone. His eyes narrowed. The gold turned to ice. What did you see? He demanded, his voice a low, dangerous command. Evelyn was trembling, shaking her head. That wasn't real. It couldn't be. But the woman who was laughing. She knew that face. It was her mother's. Chapter 6. The Council's Demand. Growl. The sound was not from him. It came from outside the massive stone door. A deep, menacing, warning snarl. Cale spun around. In an instant, the man was gone. The beast was back. His eyes blazed. His lips curled back from his teeth, revealing fangs. Not just long teeth. Fangs. They dare, he whispered. It was not a question. It was a threat. Bang, bang, bang. Someone was pounding on the huge wooden door. The sound echoed through the vast stone room. Kale, a new voice roared. It was hard, cold, and dripping with authority. Open this door. The council demands it. Council? Evelyn shrank back, pulling the heavy furs up to her chin. Fear. Cold, sharp, real fear, not the strange, hot panic from the cabin. This was human fear. Kale looked at her. His face was a mask of torture. The hate was back, a tidal wave of it. Directed at her. Why? What did she have to do with any of this? We smell the bloodline, Alpha. The voice roared through the wood. The traitor's spawn. Give her to us. Traitor's spawn? The letter. Stop running. This isn't happening. I'm a doctor. I save lives. This is insane. Kale stalked to the door. His entire body was vibrating with a rage so deep it made the air tremble. He didn't open it. He pressed his forehead against the thick, ancient wood. She is mine, he growled. The words were low. Final. She is death, the voice screamed. She carries his taint. The law is clear. You know what must be done. A beat of silence. Then, the child of Magnus Reed dies. Evelyn's blood turned to ice. Magnus Reed? Her father. Her father was Martin Reed, a dentist. I am from Ohio. He left when she was 10. He sent birthday cards. This is a mistake. They have the wrong person. She is unclaimed. Kale roared back, slamming his own fist against the door. She has not turned. By the law, she is innocent. Innocent. The man outside laughed. It was a cold, barking, cruel sound. Her awakening burns the air. He knows she is here. Because of her, the old enemy is stirring. Who? Who knows? Give her up, Kale. Do not let your weakness doom us all. Hand over the girl or share her fate. The room was silent. Evelyn finally understood. They wanted to kill her. Because they thought of her father was this Magnus person. Kale turned. Slowly. He looked at her. She was drowning in his bed, lost in his furs. She was small. Humans. Weak. His golden eyes locked with hers. The hate was there. A deep, dark ocean of it. But the other thing. The pull. The agony. Mine. It was stronger. He spoke, his voice suddenly, terrifyingly quiet. They will tear you apart, he said. I don't understand. She sobbed, the words catching in her dry throat. You don't have to understand. He stepped away from the door. He walked toward her. Each step was silent. Deadly. He stopped beside the bed, looming over her. He smelled like fury and protection. You have one choice. He leaned down. Closer. And closer. His face was inches from hers. His heat, it scorched her. His gold eyes, they devoured her. You trust me. Bang. The door shuddered in its frame. Or you trust them. His gaze dared her. Challenged her. And Evelyn Reed. He whispered her name, and the sound was both a curse and a prayer. I hate you almost as much as they do. The door splintered. Chapter 10. The Archive of Lies. The snow in the courtyard was no longer white. It was a ruined, trampled mess, soaked with 2 large, steaming patches of dark blood. The metallic smell of it, mixed with the musky scent of wet fur, clung to the freezing air. Evelyn stared at the wolf she had killed. Its head was caved in, a grotesque and final injury. She should feel sick. Her entire life, her identity, was built on saving lives. Her hands were shaking, but it wasn't from fear or revulsion. It was a high, thrumming buzz. Adrenaline. And power. Kale stood over the other corpse, his bare chest still beaded with melting snow. He had snapped its neck with his bare hands. You knew they were coming, she said, her voice rough. It wasn't an accusation. It was a dawning realization. That horn. That was an alarm. I knew something was coming, Kale replied, his voice a low rumble. He nudged the dead rogue with his boot. The air changed. The wind, it smelled wrong. He turned his heavy, golden gaze on her. They came for you, Evelyn. Rogues are scavengers. They don't attack this fortress, not ever. Not unless they were sent, or unless they were drawn by a power they couldn't resist. He looked pointedly at her, at the splintered staff still clutched in her hands. Evelyn swallowed, the connection clicking into place. The power. I used you. Your father, Magnus Reed, Cale said, his voice flat, all emotion carefully locked away. He wasn't a dentist from Ohio. Evelyn froze. What are you talking about? His name was Martin. He was a liar, Cale snarled, stalking toward her. He was my father's beta. His second in command. His brother in all but blood. And he murdered him. He led our sworn enemies through our defenses and slaughtered half our pack, all for a mad, twisted idea of power. No. Evelyn shook her head, a desperate, reflexive denial. No, that's a lie. My father was weak. He sent me $20 birthday cards. Cale let out a short, harsh laugh. It was a terrible sound. $20. He butchered 20 families, Evelyn. He tore this pack apart, stole its heart, and vanished. He believed wolves were gods and humans were cattle. He wanted to break the laws that keep us hidden, to unleash us on your world. He was close now, a mountain of heat and fury. He abandoned you in the human world to hide you. But the blood always calls. On your 35th year, the exact anniversary of the day he fell, your binding broke. You woke up. Stop it, she screamed, covering her ears. I am not him. I don't even know that man. He is your blood. Cale roared, his voice echoing off the stone walls. Evelyn looked down at her own hands, covered in the blood of the creature she had just killed. I didn't. I save people, she whispered, her self-image shattering. I'm a healer. Cale's expression softened, just a fraction. He saw the profound, violent war happening inside her. He reached out slowly, not for her face, but for her hands, still gripping the bloody staff. Your arm, she whispered, her doctor's eye suddenly spotting the long, deep gash running from his shoulder to his elbow. Black-red blood was welling from the wound. It's deep. You're bleeding. You need to. Without thinking, she dropped the staff. Her bloody hands moved to his arm, her fingers instinctively probing the edge of the wound to assess the damage. Growl. The sound wasn't from his throat. It vibrated through his entire chest, a deep, possessive rumble that she felt in her own bones. His eyes flashed, the gold darkening to a molten, possessive amber. His other hand shot out, grabbing her wrist in a grip that was just shy of painful. He wasn't looking at her. He was staring at her hand on his wound. It likes your touch, he whispered, his voice hoarse. He sounded utterly, terrifyingly, stunned. My wolf, he doesn't want you to stop. Chapter 11, The Crescent Hand. He didn't let go of her wrist. The energy that had sparked between them in the snow was back, a low, dangerous hum that passed between their touching skin. Come, he said, finally releasing her, as if it pained him. His face was a mask of stone again. You need to see. You need to understand what you are and why you are in danger. He led her back inside, past the torchlit halls and away from the grand, firelit chambers. He led her down winding stone steps, worn smooth by centuries of use, into the cold, dry air of the mountain's root. The air smelled of dust, old paper, and time itself. He pushed open a massive, iron-bound door and lit a lantern. The golden light revealed a library. It was a vast, circular room, the walls curving up into shadows, lined floor to ceiling with thousands of books, scrolls, and leather-bound maps. This is the archive, Cale said, his voice hushed in the heavy silence. Everything our pack knows, everything we remember. It's all here. Why am I here? Evelyn whispered, intimidated by the weight of so much history. Because Elder Malachi was right about one thing, Cale said. He stalked to a far wall and pulled down a huge, heavy book, dropping it onto a table with a thud that sent dust pluming. Your awakening was not natural. He opened the book. The pages were thick parchment. We lost track of your line. After Magnus fled, your mother hid you. She bound your wolf, Evelyn. Tied it down with human ritual, hoping it would sleep forever. My mother? The flash of memory, the laughing woman with her mother's face, returned. She knew? She lied to me? My entire life. She was trying to save you, Cale said, his voice flat. But they found you. Who is they? Cale tapped the page. It wasn't written. It was a symbol, drawn in stark black ink, a crescent moon, its points aiming down like fangs, with a single, crimson dot in the center, like a drop of blood. Evelyn stared at it, a cold dread seeping into her. The crescent hand, Cale growled, his voice thick with a venomous hatred. A secret organization. Wolves who think like Magnus. They pull strings from the shadows, collecting power, collecting weapons. They want a war. With humans, with rival packs, with anyone who opposes them. He turned a page to a long list of names. Near the bottom, scrawled in fresh, angry ink, was hers. Evelyn Reed. 35, trauma surgeon. Location, Silverbane. They engineered this, Cale said, his voice a deadly whisper. They knew your binding would break on your 35th birthday. They sent you that letter. They herded you to that cabin, to my territory. Why? She breathed, her hand hovering over her own name. Why me? Because of him, Cale said. Because of Magnus. They think you're like him. A weapon in waiting. They drove you here for one reason, to see what I would do. To see if you would claim me? Or kill me, Cale finished, his golden eyes meeting hers. The stakes slammed down on her, stealing her breath. This wasn't a mistake. This wasn't fate. This was a plan. She was a pawn, a rat sent into a lion's den. Those rogues. She realized, her blood running cold. They weren't a random attack. That was a test. To see if I would fight. To see if you would protect me. Yes. Cale's jaw was tight. They are watching us right now. She looked up at him, at this giant, scarred man who was the only thing standing between her and everyone. What do they want from me? They want you to become your father, he said simply. He reached out, his hand settling on her shoulder. The heat of it burned through her tunic. I will not let that happen. You are under my protection, Evelyn. You are mine to protect. The promise, spoken in the ancient, dusty silence, escalated everything. It wasn't just him and her anymore. It was them, against the world. Chapter 12, The Inferno. The silence in the archive was deafening, broken only by the sound of her own ragged breathing. His hand was a brand on her shoulder, anchoring her as her world tilted on its axis. Her life was a lie. Her mother, a conspirator. Her father, a monster. And this man, this alpha king who hated her bloodline, was the only one telling her the truth. Why? She whispered, the single word encompassing everything. Why protect me? You hate me. You said so. Cale's golden eyes searched hers. The anger was gone, replaced by something far more raw and dangerous. A deep, primal hunger that made her skin prickle. I do, he breathed, his voice hoarse. I hate your name. I hate your blood. I hate that my father is a memory because of yours. He stepped closer, his other hand coming up to cup her cheek. His thumb was calloused, rough against her skin, but his touch was shaking. But my wolf. He growled, the sound vibrating deep in his chest. He does not care about names. He doesn't care about blood. He cares only about what is his. His head dipped, his wild black hair falling around them like a curtain, shutting out the world. He smells you, Cale whispered, his lips brushing her temple. He smells the fire in you. The power you just used, he wants it. He claims it. Evelyn's heart hammered. Her body was betraying her, aching, leaning into his touch. The new, wild thing inside her, the wolf, it was purring. I wanted this. Cale. She breathed. It was half a warning, half a plea. They want to make you a monster, he murmured, his lips moving to her jawline. They want to use you. I will burn them all before I let them touch you. I'm scared, she admitted, the confession torn from her. Good, he growled against her skin. So am I. And then he kissed her. It wasn't gentle. It wasn't kind. It was furious. It was desperation. It was a collision of hate and need, a desperate, possessive claim that had nothing to do with love. His lips crashed down on hers, hot and demanding. His hand fisted in her hair, tilting her head back, taking what he wanted. His other arm snaked around her waist, crushing her against his bare, scarred chest, lifting her so her feet barely touched the floor. Evelyn gasped into his mouth, and he stole her breath. Her mind screamed to fight, to run from this man who was all predator. But her body, her wolf, rebelled. She kissed him back, her hands flying up to grip his shoulders, her fingers digging into his scarred skin as if he were the only solid thing in the universe. The spark that had jumped between them in the snow, it exploded. It wasn't a spark. It was an inferno. The raw, untamed power that had surged from her in the courtyard, the power that had killed the rogue, it roared to life. It wasn't anger. It was a desire. It was a connection. It flooded out of her, pouring into him like gasoline on a flame. Kale roared into her mouth, a sound of agony and ecstasy. He tore himself away from her, throwing himself backward so hard he slammed into a towering bookshelf. Ancient scrolls and books tumbled down, burying him in a cascade of paper. He was on his knees, gasping. He wasn't looking at her. He was staring in horror at his own hands. Claws. Long, thick, black claws were tearing through the skin of his fingertips. His eyes, when he looked up at her, were no longer gold. They were pitch black. All wolf. All beasts. The bond. He choked out, his voice already a broken snarl. He was transforming. Shifting. Against his will. Your power, it's too strong, he gasped, panic and pain warring in his expression. It's forcing my wolf out. His bones began to snap. A wet, tearing sound that filled the silence. He looked at her, and for a second, the man was back, his eyes full of a new, desperate terror. Evelyn. Run, he roared as his face began to break and lengthen into a muzzle. Get out. Now. Chapter 13. The Beast in the Archive. Evelyn scrambled backward, her hands slipping on the ancient, dusty floor. The thing in the archive was no longer Kale. It was a monster. A 9-foot-tall nightmare of black fur and glistening claws. It rose to its full height, its head smashing through the oaken bookshelves. It roared, a sound of pure, mindless agony, as its last human vestiges were consumed by the inferno of the forced change. This was his wolf. The beast. And it was looking right at her, its eyes not gold, but pits of pure, black, primal hunger. It saw prey. Alpha. He's lost the leash. A new roar, this one humanoid, exploded from the hallway. 3 massive figures burst into the archive, not fully men, not fully wolves. They were the half-wolf warrior form, their bodies rippling with muscle, their faces elongated into fanged muzzles. They were Kale's warriors. The leader, a huge, gray-furred wolfman she recognized as Gunnar, didn't hesitate. He and his men crashed into Kale, a whirlwind of fur and claws. They weren't trying to kill him, they were desperately trying to subdue their alpha. The archive imploded. Priceless, ancient books were torn to shreds, the heavy reading table splintered like kindling under their weight. Get out, human! Gunnar roared, struggling to dodge a swipe from Kale's claws. Your scent, it's driving him mad. Evelyn fled. She collapsed in the cold, stone hallway, her breath sobbing in her throat. She listened to the horrifying sounds of the battle, the deep, guttural snarls, the wet impact of bodies, the howls of pain. This is my fault. She had done this. Her kiss had done this. The power she couldn't control had broken him. Malachi was right. The elders were right. She was a curse. A high-pitched, agonizing howl of pure pain echoed from the archive. It was Kale. A new sound joined the fight, the heavy rattle of metal. Evelyn's human instinct screamed at her to run, to get away, to find a place to hide. But the other part of her, the new wild wolf, felt his pain as a physical, tearing sensation in her own chest. It was her mate. He was hurting. She stopped running. She turned around. This was it. No more running. Not from her past, not from her power, and not from him. This was the point of no return. She walked back to the archive. Gunnar was at the ruined doorway, his fur matted with blood. He held a length of heavy silver chain. "I said go," he snarled. "He'll kill you." "No," Evelyn said, her voice shaking but firm. "He won't." She stepped past him into the ruined library. Kale was thrashing against the other two warriors. They had managed to loop silver chains around his limbs, and the metal was burning his fur, sizzling on his skin. He saw her and roared, a sound of pure, mindless rage. He lunged, but the chains held. "Kale," she yelled. He didn't hear her. She reached inside herself. Not for the fire. Not for the power. She reached for the hum. The connection. The thing that had sparked when she first touched his wound. "Kale," she said again, her voice softer, yet carrying over the din. "It's me. It's Evelyn." The beast froze. The thrashing stopped. The black, mindless eyes flickered. He sniffed the air, his massive head tilting. A low, agonized whine rumbled in his chest. She took a step closer. "Don't," Gunnar warned. "It's okay," she whispered. She was terrified. But she did not back down. She held out her hand, palm up. "I'm here. I'm not running." Kale's beast stared at her hand. He stared at her face. Slowly, painfully, his massive, wolfen head lowered. The rage, it didn't just stop. It retreated. It was gone. He was left, a giant, trembling, and confused creature, staring at the small woman who had both broken and tamed him. Chapter 14. The Rival and the Spark. Kale was unconscious in his chambers. The silver had done its work, forcing the change to recede, but it had left him poisoned, feverish, and deeply weakened. Evelyn sat by his bed, wiping his brow with a cool, damp cloth. She refused to leave, ignoring the hostile stares of the elders gathered at the door. Gunnar stood guard, his human form restored, his expression a mix of profound awe and deep suspicion. The relative quiet was shattered as Malachi stormed into the room, his face a mask of cold fury. "He is weak," the elders snarled, pointing a trembling finger at Evelyn. "He is weak because of her. The rogues were just a test. The real attack is coming." As if summoned by his words, the deep, wailing horn of the fortress blared. This was not the internal alarm. This was an attack. "The Blood Moon Pack," Malachi hissed, his eyes full of disgust as he looked at Kale's unconscious form. "Our rivals. They're Alpha, Silas. He's at the gates. And he's not alone." "He couldn't know Kale is weak," Gunnar growled, moving to the window. "It's impossible." Unless someone told him, Malachi spat, his gaze landing on Evelyn. The crescent hand. They tested her, and now they are using her. They broadcast his weakness to his greatest enemy. Chaos erupted in the halls. Warriors roared. A massive, echoing crash shook the fortress to its foundations. The main gates were down. Kale stirred, groaning, his eyes fluttering. The silver poisoning left him limp. "Evelyn," he rasped. "I'm here," she said, gripping his hand. "You must hide." "Hide?" Malachi scoffed. "She is the reason they are here. Silas knows who she is. Magnus Reed's daughter. She is a prize." The chamber doors burst open. He was not a brute like Kale. The man who entered was sleek, pale, and moved with a serpent's grace. His eyes were a cold, piercing ice blue. This was Silas. He ignored the elders and ignored the weakened Kale in the bed. He looked right at Evelyn. "So," Silas mused, his voice a silky, dangerous hiss. "This is the little spark that lit the fire." He began to walk toward her. Gunnar moved to block him. With casual, contemptuous speed, Silas backhanded the warrior. Gunnar flew across the room, crashing into the stone wall and slumping to the floor, stunned. "Kale, Kale, Kale," Silas asks, his gaze finally falling on the bed. "She broke you." How pathetic. The great beast of Silverbane, tamed by a half-breed witch. He reached for Evelyn's arm. "Come, little spark. The hand wants to see you burn." "No," Kale roared. He used every ounce of his strength to rise, but his muscles spasmed, poisoned by the silver. He collapsed back onto the pillows, helpless. Evelyn was alone. As Silas's cold fingers clamped around her arm, something in her snapped. It wasn't the hot, uncontrollable fire from the archive. This was different. It was the cold, precise focus of the trauma surgeon. It was the ice of her old, controlled life, now sharpened into a weapon. She didn't pull away. She grabbed Silas's wrist, her fingers locking onto his pulse points. And she pushed that cold, focused energy into him. Silas screamed. It was not a roar of pain. It was a high-pitched, shocked shriek. He stumbled back, clutching his arm as if it were frozen, his ice-blue eyes wide with disbelief. What is this? She hadn't just burned him. She had controlled it. Chapter 15. The Alpha's Claim. Silas's shock was a vital, 2-second pause. His warriors, flooding into the room behind him, hesitated, seeing their Alpha's sudden distress. It was all the time Cale needed. Weak, poisoned, and barely able to move, he filled his lungs and roared. It was not a sound of rage. It was the Alpha command. Not at Silas, but at his own pack. Rise. Gunnar, shaking his head, exploded to his feet. Silverbane warriors, hearing their Alpha's command, surged into the chamber, crashing into the Blood Moon pack. The room erupted into a full-scale, desperate battle. Silas snarled, his mask of cruel composure gone. You bitch, he shrieked, his eyes fixed on Evelyn. He lunged for her again, ignoring the war around him. Cale, moving on pure, toxic adrenaline and a primal need to protect, launched himself from the bed. He intercepted Silas in midair. The two Alphas, one strong and one poisoned, crashed through the thick stone of the chamber's balcony, disappearing into the raging snowstorm outside. Cale! Evelyn screamed. She ran to the shattered balcony. Below, in the courtyard, it was happening. Cale, weakened and slow, was losing. Silas was on top of him, his own black claws raised for the killing blow. No! Evelyn roared, and the sound that ripped from her throat was not human. It was the deep, guttural cry of a she-wolf. She didn't hesitate. She didn't think so. She jumped. From the second-story balcony, she plummeted into the snow-filled courtyard below. She landed hard, her legs screaming in protest, but her bones did not break. Silas turned, his eyes wide in shock at this new, impossible attack. Evelyn charged him. No ice. No fire. Just claws she didn't know she had, and a fury that was entirely animal. She tackled him, clawing, biting, and tearing at him, a cornered wolf protecting her mate. Her ferocity stunned him, giving Cale 1 single second. Cale, gasping, grabbed a sharp shard of broken stone from the balcony wreckage. With his last ounce of strength, he plunged it deep into Silas's side. Silas howled, a sound of pure agony. He threw Evelyn off him, scrambled to his feet clutching his bleeding side, and roared a retreat. His pack, hearing their Alpha's cry, disengaged and fled the fortress. Silence. Cale collapsed in the snow. The adrenaline was gone. The silver and the wound were overwhelming him. Cale, stay with me. Evelyn crawled to him, trying to stop the bleeding. Malachi and the other elders stalked into the courtyard, their faces grim. He is dying, Malachi said, his voice cold. And it is your fault. You are a curse. You will be executed. It is over, Cale, Malachi said, drawing a long, gleaming silver knife. The pack needs a strong Alpha, not one poisoned by a witch. I will end this. He moved, not toward Cale, but toward Evelyn. No, Cale gasped, trying to rise, to put himself between them. With a surge of impossible strength, Cale forced himself to his feet. He was bleeding, poisoned, and swaying, but he was standing. He stood between Malachi and Evelyn. You will not touch her, Cale snarled, his voice raw with a power that defied his weakness. He looked at Malachi, at the elders, at his entire pack now gathering in the courtyard. She is my mate. He defied them. He claimed her. Publicly. Irrevocably. Malachi froze. The silver knife hung uselessly in his hand. To strike her now was not just murder, it was a challenge to the Alpha's claim. It was treason. Having spoken his last word, Kale's eyes rolled back. He swayed and collapsed unconscious into Evelyn's arms. She was left alone, holding her dying alpha, surrounded by enemies. Chapter 16. The Silver Cage. Evelyn knelt in the snow, her arms wrapped around Kale's unconscious, heavy form. He was burning. The silver poisoning, combined with the impossible exertion, was creating a violent fever. She could feel his heart beating, a frantic, thready rhythm under her palms. "He's in shock," she said, her doctor's voice cutting through her own panic. "The silver, it's a neurotoxin. He needs to be purged." Malachi's cold voice cut her off. The elder stood over them, his face a mask of grim triumph. "He is unfit. Poisoned in body and in mind. He has claimed an abomination as his mate and doomed this pack with his weakness." "You're wrong. I can help him," she pleaded, looking around at the circle of hostile warriors. "If I can stabilize him, I can." "You have done enough," which Malachi snarled. He nodded to his loyalists. "Take the alpha to the cells. The lower dungeons are lined with silver. It will contain him. Keep the beast from rising until he is sane again." "No," Evelyn screamed. "The silver will kill him. It's more poisonous. He needs care, not a cage." Gunnar stepped forward, his face a mask of torn loyalties. "Malachi, he is our alpha. He claimed her. The law was not made for madmen." Malachi roared, rounding on him. "He is a liability. And you, warrior, will obey your acting elder. Or do you wish to see Silas return and butcher us all while our alpha raves in a fever dream? Your duty is to the pack. Now, take him." Gunnar looked at Kale's dying form. He looked at Evelyn, his eyes filled with a new, cold calculation. Finally, his loyalty to the pack's survival won. He nodded, his face grim. "He is right. The pack must endure." Gunnar and two other warriors bent to lift Kale. "No, please. Gunnar." Evelyn begged, but he wouldn't meet her eyes. This was the first, agonizing crack in the foundation of her trust. They dragged Kale away, his limp body carving a path in the bloody snow. Evelyn tried to scramble after them, but Malachi's hand clamped onto her arm like a steel trap. "As for you, mate, a madman's claim is meaningless. You are a prisoner. You will be held for judgment." He shoved her toward the fortress. The cold, precise ice she had wielded against Silas was gone. The fire from the archive was gone. All her new, wild power had vanished with Kale, leaving her empty. She was just Evelyn again. Cold, terrified, and utterly, profoundly alone. Her internal flaw, the one she'd spent her whole life obeying, screamed at her. "See? This is what happens. You trusted him. You let him in. And you destroyed him." She didn't fight as they threw her into a small, lightless cell deep in the mountain. The thud of the heavy iron bar falling into place was the sound of her last hope dying. Chapter 17. The Price of Survival. Hours passed. Or perhaps it was only minutes. In the absolute, crushing darkness of the cell, time had no meaning. The stone floor was so cold it leached the warmth from her body, but it was nothing compared to the ice in her soul. Her self-reliance, her old shield, was all she had left. But it was a hollow, useless comfort. It hadn't saved Kale. It hadn't saved her. It was just a name for being alone. The heavy bar was lifted. The door creaked open, spilling a rectangle of dim torchlight onto the floor. Gunnar stood in the doorway. He carried a small wooden tray with a cup of water and a piece of bread. A desperate, stupid flicker of hope ignited in her chest. "Gunnar. Kale, is he?" "He is stable," Gunnar said, his voice flat. He set the tray just inside the door, refusing to look at her. "You have to help me," she pleaded, crawling toward him. "Malachi is wrong. I can feel Kale. The bond, it's real. He's in pain, but he's alive. We have to fight Malachi. We have to save him." Gunnar remained rigid, a sentinel of stone. "There is no we human." "What?" "I serve the pack," he said, his voice heavy with a terrible, crushing resolve. "I do not serve one man. And I do not serve his mate. I don't understand. You saw me. In the archive. You helped. I helped my alpha, Gunnar corrected, his voice hardening. Silas retreated, but he will be back. The Blood Moon Pack is not our only enemy. The Crescent Hand, they want you. Silas was just their test. Because Kale protected you, because he claimed you, they know he is compromised. They will send everyone now. They will destroy this fortress, kill every warrior, every cub, just to get to you. A dread, colder and deeper than the mountain stone, filled her. What are you saying? Malachi is right, Gunnar said, finally meeting her gaze. His golden eyes were dead, all their warrior fire extinguished by a cold, hard grief. You are a curse. You are a plague. One single life for hundreds. You're going to kill me, she whispered. No, Gunnar said, standing to his full height. We are going to trade you. This was the true betrayal. Not from Malachi, the obvious, snarling enemy, but from Gunnar, the loyal second. The warrior who had seen her tame the beast. He was sacrificing her. The Crescent Hand has been contacted, he said, his voice flat and devoid of all emotion. They will be here by moonrise. They will take you, and they will spare the Silverbane Pack. You can't, she cried, scrambling to her feet. Kale. He will never forgive you. He will hunt you. Kale will live, Gunnar growled, his face twisting in a spasm of pain. He will heal. He will rule. The pack will survive. That is my only duty. I trusted you. I saw what you did, and I believed in you. I was wrong. He turned, his duty, a shield against her agony. Gunnar, no. Don't do this. He pulled the heavy door shut, sealing her in the dark. The sound of the iron bar sliding home was her execution bell. She was utterly, completely lost. Chapter 18. The Hierarch. Moonrise. The cell door opened. Malachi and Gunnar stood there, silhouetted against the torchlight. It is time, which Malachi snarled. Evelyn didn't fight. She was numb. Her internal flaw had won. She was encased in her old, cold ice once more. This was her fault. This was her punishment for feeling, for trusting. They dragged her through the silent fortress, up the stairs, and into the main courtyard. The snow was falling heavily now, thick white flakes that covered the bloodstains from the earlier battle, muffling all sound. Waiting in the center of the yard were 5 figures. They were wrapped in dark, heavy cloaks, the hoods pulled low. The black crescent moon, dripping its single drop of blood, was embroidered on their chests. The leader stepped forward. He was smaller than the others. He slowly, theatrically, pulled back his hood. Evelyn's numbness shattered. It couldn't be. Ben, she whispered, her voice cracking. It was the intern from the hospital. The quiet, shaky kid who she had taught to suture. The one who had watched her wide-eyed in the trauma bay. It's Hierarch now, he said. His voice was no longer shaky. It was cold, sharp, fanatical. And Dr. Reed, you are so much more impressive than we ever hoped. You worked with me for a year. She stammered, her entire reality tilting. I watched you, he corrected, a thin, cruel smile playing on his lips. I studied you. Your precision. Your control. The ice in your veins before you ever knew you were a wolf. We knew Magnus' daughter was special. We just didn't know how special. This was the final, devastating betrayal. Her human life. It was a lie, too. The letter, she breathed. In my locker. I placed it, Ben, Hierarch said, his eyes gleaming. Just a little push, to see if the wolf would swim. And you started a war. Brilliant. She has done more than that, Malachi spat. She has broken an alpha. She is yours. Take her and honor your agreement. Silverbane is neutral. Of course, Hierarch said. He stepped up to Evelyn. His eyes, they were mad. He produced a syringe, a heavy glass vial filled with a thick, black, oily fluid. What is that? Evelyn asked, pulling back, her ice finally turning to raw dread. Death is a waste, Evelyn, Hierarch said, his voice dropping to a conspiratorial whisper. And a natural transformation? So unreliable. So emotional. This is what your father really wanted. Not just power. Perfection. Control. This will burn away the scared little doctor. It will scour the confused, sentimental mate. It will leave only the weapon. He grabbed her. Gunnar moved, taking her other arm, holding her still. She looked at Gunnar, at the trusted ally. He would not meet her eyes. He just stared at the ground, his face a granite mask of shame. She was lost. Betrayed by her pack, by her past, by everyone. Kale was dying in a dungeon because of her. And her only friend from her human life was her executioner. Hierarch pressed the thick, cold needle to her neck. "Don't fight it, Evelyn," he whispered, his smile terrifying. "It's time to meet your true self." He plunged the needle in. Fire. Blinding, black fire. Agony, and then nothing. Chapter 19. The Bond of Blood. The blackness was absolute. But it was not empty. Evelyn was floating in a cold, oily void. The poison Hierarch had injected was not a killer. It was a scourge. She could feel it, a sentient, black sludge, moving through her. It was attacking the fire of her new wolf nature, trying to extinguish it. But it was also attacking the ice of her human control, trying to shatter it. It was a war inside her, and the agony was indescribable. It was worse than the change. It was the pain of annihilation. She felt the bond, the thin, golden thread that now connected her to Kale, stretch. It was thinning, going taut, fraying. The poison was targeting that too. It was trying to erase him. No, she thought, a final, desperate cry in the void. Not him. It's working. She heard Hierarch's voice, distant and thin, as if from another world. She's forgetting him. The attachments are burning away. She is becoming pure. The bond stretched, tighter, tighter. Roar. It wasn't a sound. It was an explosion in her soul. It was Kale. The sound, the fury, the raw, possessive power of him, shot down the golden thread like a bolt of lightning. It blasted the black sludge back. The courtyard erupted. Hierarch screamed. The 5 cloaked figures of the hand went flying as a 9-foot-tall monster of black fur and steaming fury tore through them. It was Kale. But he was not the mindless beast from the archive. He was both. He was the alpha. His skin was sizzling. He had torn himself from the silver-lined dungeon, burning his own flesh to cinders to get free. The agony of her injection, the threat of the bond breaking, had snapped him from his fever and given him a focus that was stronger than any poison. He smashed Hierarch aside, sending the smaller man tumbling into a snowbank. He didn't stop to kill. He stormed to Evelyn, who was convulsing on the ground. He saw the black syringe. He saw her eyes, milky and lost. He knew what it was. "I will not let them take you," he roared, his voice a guttural mix of man and wolf. Malachi and Gunnar stared, frozen in horror at the apparition they had just condemned. Kale didn't hesitate. He slammed his claws into his own forearm, tearing a ragged, deep wound. Black-red blood, alpha blood, gushed from the artery. He grabbed Evelyn's head, crushing her mouth to his bleeding arm. "Drink," he commanded. She choked. The hot, metallic, powerful taste flooded her senses. It was not like the black oil. It was life. It was rage. It was Kale. His blood was an antidote. It was fire meeting the sludge. But it didn't just fight the poison. It merged with it. The ice of her human control. The fire of her wolf awakening. And the pure, primal power of her alpha's blood. They slammed together. They twisted. They fused. Her vision snapped back into focus. The world was sharper. She was on her knees, gasping. Kale was kneeling over her, swaying, his body a ruin of silver burns and self-inflicted wounds. He was dying. He had given her his last strength. You came." She choked out. He collapsed, his massive head falling into her lap. His breathing was shallow. Always, he gasped, his golden eyes dim and pained, finding hers. Trust was no longer a question. It was a fact sealed in blood. Chapter 20. The Luna's Gambit. "He's dying," Evelyn screamed, her hands flying over Kale's body. The doctor was back, her mind razor-sharp, but now it was fused with the instincts of the wolf. She could smell the silver poison on his skin. She could feel the thready, frantic beat of his heart. Gunnar and the other warriors, their faces a mask of awe and shame, rushed forward. Hierarch and the Hand had vanished into the snowstorm, their prize ripped from their grasp. "Get him to the Great Hall. Now," Evelyn commanded. Her voice, it wasn't a plea. It was an order. It cracked with an authority that made even Malachi flinch and obey. They lifted their broken alpha and carried him inside. They laid him before the cold hearth. He was fading. The Hand. Cale gasped, his hand weakly finding hers. They didn't want her. They wanted a distraction. What? Gunnar knelt beside them. Alpha, what do you mean? The Heartwood, Cale choked out. Moonrise. They are poisoning the Heartwood now. A collective gasp went up from the warriors. Malachi's face went white with terror. The grove? If they sever the connection, the pack dies. The land, it will die. This was the real plan. Hierarch's attack on Evelyn was just to draw the Alpha, to break him, to occupy the pack's leadership while he struck at their soul. Evelyn's mind flew. The ice of her control, the fire of her wolf, the bond with Cale, it all clicked into place. She was not a pawn. She was the only one who could fix this. She stood. Gunnar, he is your Alpha. You failed him. You will redeem him. Take every warrior you have. You will assault the Heartwood. You are the storm. Gunnar, his eyes burning with a desperate need for redemption, nodded. And you? Luna? Evelyn looked at Malachi. The old, bitter wolf could not meet her gaze. You, she said, her voice soft and dangerous. You owe him his life. You will not let him die. You will listen to me, and you will do exactly as I say. She began giving orders. Her orders. I need silver. It poisons him. Malachi protested. It's a neurotoxin, Evelyn snapped, her surgeon's mind taking over. But in a controlled dose, it can counteract the other poison. Like atropine, for nerve, gas. I can use it. I can balance it. She was combining her human medicine with this new, primal world. While Malachi and the old healers ran to obey, she knelt by Cale. You are the Luna. Now, he whispered, a bloody smile touching his lips. I am your mate, she corrected, pressing her hand to his chest, willing her new, strange power into him. And I am not letting you die. You and this pack. She worked a whirlwind of ancient herbs and modern medical theory. She stabilized him. He was not healed, but he was awake. Gunnar is not enough, Cale rasped, his hand finding the hilt of a great sword by the hearth. Hierarch is mine. He forced himself to sit up, his entire body screaming in protest. You can't even stand, Evelyn said, her heart breaking. No, Cale agreed, his golden eyes finding hers, burning with a new, clear fire. But we can. He held out his hand. Not for help. For her. She took it. He leaned on her. She braced him. They stood together. Broken, bleeding, but one. The pack gathered at the door, seeing their Alpha and their new Luna side by side, ready to hunt, they howled. Their fear was gone. Replaced by fury. Chapter 21, The Ridge. The forest was a maze of black trees and deep, blue shadows. The full moon was high, a cold, silver eye in the sky. It was a moonrise. They moved as one. Cale was not leaning on her for support anymore. They were braced against each other, a single, four-legged creature of vengeance. His left arm was locked around her waist, her right arm around his, their free hands ready. His wounds still steamed, but with every step, every breath he took of her scent, the poison receded. Her presence, the bond, was healing him faster than any medicine. I tried to hate you, he whispered, his breath hot in her ear, their steps never faltering. My father's ghost, my pride, they demanded it. I was terrified of this, she admitted, her voice just as low, her eyes scanning the woods ahead. This power, this wolf, this world. But I was never terrified of you. He growled, a low, possessive rumble of agreement. This was their true claim. Not the public declaration. Not the desperate kiss in the archive. This. The hunt. Together. They reached the ridge. Below them, in a hollow, was the heartwood. It was a grove of ancient, massive, white-barked trees, all lit from within by a soft, pale blue light. It was magic. And it was dying. In the very center of the grove, Hierarch stood over a black, pulsing stone altar. He was chanting, his arms raised. Black, oily veins were creeping from the altar, up the roots of the glowing trees, turning them a sick, dead gray. The air smelled of ozone and decay. Gunnar and the pack were hidden in the trees to the north, a silent, gathering shadow. "He's poisoning the land," Kale growled. The sound was pure alpha. His claws, long and black, slid from his fingertips. He was healing. "Gunnar is in position. He will take the guards." He turned to Evelyn. The fever, the poison, the doubt, it was gone. His golden eyes were clear, bright, and burning with a fire that was no longer just need or possession. It was devotion. "He is mine," Kale stated. "No," Evelyn said, her voice soft. "He's ours." She flexed her own hands. For the first time, she saw them. Claws, not black and thick like Kale's. They were shorter, sharper, and shone with a pale, silver-white light. The color of the moon. The blood, the poison, the bond, it had made her something new. Kale stared at her claws, and a slow, proud smile spread across his face. He looked at her, his mate. His equal. Together, he vowed. Together, she promised. As Gunnar's war howl erupted from the north, Kale and Evelyn leaped from the ridge, a twin shadow of death plunging toward the heart of the grove. Chapter 22. The Heart of the Storm. The grove exploded into chaos. Gunnar's war cry was the signal. His warriors, a wave of gray fur and righteous fury, burst from the northern tree line, slamming into the cloaked guards of the crescent hand. The clash of claws on metal, of wolfen roars and human screams, filled the hollow. But Kale and Evelyn had only one target. They landed in the snow at the edge of the grove, a twin shadow of death. Hierarch spun, his eyes wide with shocked disbelief. You're alive? He's alive? Impossible. You lied, Evelyn snarled, the sound ripping from a throat that was no longer entirely human. She and Kale advanced, side by side, moving as one. I illuminated. Hierarch shrieked, his fanaticism returning. I gave you a gift. I am giving this world a gift. He ripped a black, oily syringe from his belt. This one was different, larger. You were a test, Evelyn. A prototype. This is the result. He plunged the needle into his own neck. Hierarch screamed. His body convulsed, bones snapping, but he didn't transform. He just became more. Faster, stronger. Black, oily veins pulsed under his skin. He blurred forward, moving with unnatural speed. Two of his elite guards, huge men armed with silver-edged blades, intercepted Kale. He's mine, Alpha. Evelyn yelled, not breaking stride. Kale met the guards in a clash of steel and claw, his own power, fueled by her presence, roaring back to life. He trusted her. He let her go. Evelyn charged Hierarch alone. You're still just a scared doctor, he taunted, dodging her first strike, his hand lashing out like a snake. You're still running. No, she said, her new silver-white claws extending, sharp as scalpels. I'm not. She met his attack. He was fast, his serum-fueled strength immense, but she was different. Her mind, the surgeon's mind, saw everything. She saw the vectors of his attack, the stress on his joints, the microseconds of opportunity. The ice of her control made her precise. The fire of her wolf gave her a speed she'd never known. You're just a tool. Magnus filth, he spat, aiming a blow at her head. She ducked, her silver claws raking across his chest. He screamed, his blood running black and oily. The wounds sizzled. Her claws, they were anathema to his poison. I'm not him, she roared, and the Alpha's blood inside her, the bond, flared. She was no longer just dodging. She was hunting. She was a blur of silver and white, a healer's precision turned into a warrior's grace. She was winning. Hierarch saw it. His madness turned to panic. He scrambled back, his eyes darting to the pulsing, black altar. His power, it was coming from there. With a final, desperate roar, Kale dispatched his guards, shattering their silver blades. He joined her, his black for a stark contrast to her pale, moonlit fury. They stood together. The altar. Evelyn panted. It's feeding him. Kale nodded. He didn't need to ask. He knew. On 3. He growled. They moved. Not as two, but as one. Kale roared, a full-throated alpha command that shook the trees, drawing Hierarch's focus. The man raised his arms to block the sound. In that instant, Evelyn slid under Kale's attack, her silver claws plunging deep into the pulsing black stone. She tore at the oily, root-like veins connecting it to the heartwood. The altar screamed. It was a high, thin, psychic wail. Hierarch convulsed. His power source was severed. The black veins in his skin retreated. He was just Ben again. Weak, mortal, and terrified. No. No. Please. He stammered, fumbling for another syringe. Kale was on him in a heartbeat. There was no mercy. Not for this. His claws, thick and black, impaled the man, lifting him from the ground. For my pack, Kale snarled. Hierarch's eyes went wide. The last syringe fell from his lifeless hand. Kale threw the body aside. The grove was silent. Gunnar and his men stood victorious over the fallen hand. The black altar crumbled into dust. But the heartwood, its pale blue light was flickering. The black veins, though severed, had done their work. The ancient trees were dying. Chapter 23. The Price of Treason. The battle was over, but the war for the pack's soul had just begun. The great white trees of the heartwood were dimming, their light guttering like weak candles. A cold that had nothing to do with the snow began to settle over the grove. Kale, his breath pluming, swayed on his feet. The fight was done, and his borrowed strength was fading, his wounds burning. The land. He whispered, his heart breaking. It's lost. No, Evelyn said. She walked past him, her own power, that strange, new fusion of ice, fire, and blood humming under her skin. She was no longer just a doctor. She was more. She placed her hands, her silver-white claws now retracted, on the central, most poisoned tree. She closed her eyes. She reached. She felt the poison, the black, oily death left by Hierarch. But under it, she felt a pulse. Faint. Weak. But there. She pushed. She didn't push fire. She pushed life. She pushed the ice of her control to isolate the poison. She pushed the fire of her wolf to burn it away. She pushed the alpha's blood inside her as a transfusion, a healing balm. A soft, white-silver light flowed from her hands. It was the color of her claws. The black, oily veins sizzled and retreated from her touch. The great tree shuddered. And its pale blue light brightened. Just a fraction. But it was enough. It wasn't a cure. It was stabilized. Awestruck, the pack knelt. One by one, the hardened warriors, even Gunnar, sank to one knee in the snow. Evelyn opened her eyes, panting from the effort. She turned. Kale was watching her, his golden eyes filled with a reverence that stole her breath. Luna. Gunnar breathed. The word was broken by a single, slow clap. Malachi. The old elder walked into the grove, his face a ruin of conflict. He stopped before Kale and Evelyn. He looked at the healing tree. He looked at his alpha, wounded but standing. He looked at the woman who had saved them all. Slowly, his joints creaking, Malachi dropped to one knee. I was wrong, he said, his voice, for the first time, broken. I saw a ghost. The ghost of Magnus. I let fear rule me. I betrayed my alpha. I betrayed my pack. He drew his silver dagger. He did not offer it to Kale. He reversed it and offered it, hilt first, to Evelyn. My life is forfeit, he said. The pack demands justice. Do what you must. Kale watched silent. This was her choice. Her test. Evelyn looked at the old, bitter wolf. She saw the man who had ordered Kale to a silver cell. The man who had traded her to her enemies. She should hate him. But her new, clear sight saw more. She saw a man crippled by grief, blinded by a fear so deep it had turned to poison. Just like her old ice. "Get up, Elder Malachi," she said, her voice quiet, but echoing with the command she had earned. He looked up confused. "Luna, Kale and I, we do not have a pack so large that we can waste warriors. Especially elders." She did not take the knife. "Your life is forfeit. You'll spend it in service. You will teach the young. You will help me heal this grove. You will rebuild the trust you broke. That is my judgment. Mercy, not death. Service, not exile." Malachi stared at her, and for the first time, all the hate, all the fear, broke. Tears streamed down his face. He bowed his head low to the ground. "My Luna," he whispered. "My life is YV." The pack was whole again. United. Not by fear, but by her. Chapter 24. The Silverbane Luna. Weeks passed. The snows of the deep winter began to melt, giving way to the first, tentative signs of spring. The Heartwood's blue light, once dim, now throbbed with a healthy, steady pulse. Evelyn's daily infusions of her own energy, combined with Malachi's ancient knowledge, were healing it. The fortress was rebuilt. The pack was strong. Kale was changed. The silver burns had faded to pale, new scars, maps of his survival. But the real change was inside. The beast, the mindless rage, was gone. It was no longer a separate thing he had to fight. It was him. The bond with Evelyn, now permanent and unbreakable, had soothed it, integrated it. He was whole, man and wolf, for the first time in his life. He found her on the great balcony of their chambers, the same one Silas had thrown him from. She was breathing in the clean, mountain air. She was no longer the woman in gray. She was vibrant. Her skin glowed with health. Her eyes, no longer numb, were bright and sharp. She wore the furs of the pack, not as a costume, but as a skin. She was home. "They don't fear me anymore," she whispered, not needing to turn to know he was there. "The children, they brought me flowers today. You healed their home," Kale's deep voice rumbled. He came up behind her, wrapping his arms around her waist, pulling her back against his solid, warm chest. "You saved their alpha. They love their Luna." He buried his face in her hair, breathing her in. The scent of her, it was peace. "The beast," he murmured. "He is quiet. All my life he raged. Now he purrs. Only for you." She smiled, leaning her head back against his shoulder. Her transformation was complete. She was not the ice-cold doctor, terrified of feeling. She was not the wildfire wolf, terrified of control. She was both. She was balanced. He turned her in his arms, his golden eyes clear, deep, and filled with an emotion so powerful it made her heart ache. "In the archive," he said, his voice raw. "That was needed. In the courtyard, that was defiance. This." He lifted his hand, his thumb tracing her lips. "This is forever." He leaned in. Their true kiss was not a firestorm. It was not a collision. It was a vow. It was slow and deep and healing. It was the promise of 1,000 sunrises of a life together. He pulled back, his eyes dark with devotion. He lowered his head to the curve of her neck, breathing her in. "You are mine, Evelyn Reed," he whispered. "I am," she breathed, her hands fisting in his shirt. His fangs, sharp and warm, grazed her skin. "And I am yours," he bit. It was not painful. It was light. A jolt of pure, ecstatic energy that slammed through her. It was him, his soul, pouring into hers. Their bond, the golden thread, thickened, hardened, and settled into pure, shining platinum. She gasped, her head falling back as the world exploded in a flash of white gold light. When her vision cleared, she was Evelyn, but she was also Luna. Kale rested his forehead against hers, their breathing one shared, steady rhythm. He was complete. She was home. They stood together, watching the full moon rise over their mountains. There was no more running. There was no more fear. He growled, a low, playful rumble, deep in his chest. Evelyn laughed, the sound clear and bright. Her own power sang in perfect harmony with his. The age of the Silver Bane Luna had begun.